amnesty law that he has proposed to Parliament, Michael Amaran.
All right, we appreciate it. Stefano Pozzavon, live for us there in Caracas. Well, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is downplaying the idea that the U.S. military would take part in a coup to oust Mr. Maduro.
But he says the U.S. has a right to defend its national security, as he put it. The Republican senator, a vocal critic of President Maduro for some time, also says the unrest reflects the demands of the Venezuelan people, not the U.S.
This is not a U.S.-backed anything. I didn't see any Americans in the street in Venezuela when hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Venezuelans took to the streets on the 23rd. This is Juan Guaido and the National Assembly, which was lawfully elected under the Constitution of Venezuela. By the way, a constitution put in place by Hugo Chavez.
All right, our next guest is a former American diplomat who now runs a consulting firm called the Global Situation Room. Brett Bruin joining us now from our Washington bureau. Appreciate you joining us, sir. First off, I just want to ask what you make of these dueling appeals to the military from Maduro and Guaido. I mean, is there a strong chance that some in the military will actually defect, knowing that there's an amnesty bill that might be approved?
I think there is, and in fact, I would go one step further and say that the American administration, perhaps other countries, might want to consider buttressing the offer that Guaido has made to the military and offer asylum to military officers that are willing to set down their arms and to leave the country. Let me also just paint a picture for your viewers of the current situation in Venezuela. We're talking about decades of decay, not only on a political level, but on a humanitarian, on the social fabric of the country. And so it is rotten to a point where it's very difficult for any of the institutions to function as they would in a normal country.
It is undoubtedly a catastrophe what has happened socially and economically in Venezuela. I'm wondering what you make of the mantle that would be put on Juan Guaido should he become president after new elections, if it all went his way. How much pressure on him to then deliver? Venezuelans have been promised things by politicians before and been bitterly disappointed.
It is an enormous task. You're talking about rebuilding a country from the ground up, not only infrastructure, not only institutions, but we have a population that is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, children that are stunted. So we would need a massive international effort. I know over the weekend that Secretary Pompeo put $20 million in aid on the table. It's going to require much more.
I just want to ask you what you also make of the U.S. response to all of this. I mean, early on, we were hearing that the Trump administration might recognize Juan Guaido. He did. Vice President Mike Pence, I mean, as the protests were getting underway last Wednesday, he was saying, urging people to go out to the streets and, telling them to reclaim your birthright of liberty. Is that something quite significant to see America so, I guess, aggressive and basically calling for regime change?
Yeah, I would advise the White House, the State Department, and especially John Bolton to tone it down a bit. Bolton sent out the tweets this afternoon. They resonated like lightning bolts on the streets of Caracas. The threats not only if American diplomats were harmed, but even if Guaido and the National Assembly were arrested or harmed in any way. That resonates with the kind of argument that Maduro is trying to make, to paint this picture of an America that is trying to play puppet master, and they are falling into that trap too often.
It's a very good point. I mean, when does support or an opinion become actual interference and trying to engender things on the streets of another country? What you know of Mr. Maduro, he's not somebody who's inclined to say, okay, I'll go, and he hasn't in the past. What might he do? And do you see him suggesting talks as perhaps an indicator he doesn't think he's holding all the cards anymore?
What is important to understand about Nicolas Maduro is that he is a front man. There are a whole series of interests behind him, whether it is the interest of Cuba, Russia, other countries that have built relations, that have investments in the country, as well as this narco-trafficking network. And so he isn't able, as an individual, simply to decide, okay, I'm done, it's time to go. He's being propped up by all of those interests. And so it's important as we navigate this, we consider the three-dimensional diplomacy that's needed to serve a solution to all of those interested parties.
What we've also been hearing from people on the ground is just the support that Maduro is losing from the poor. That has been his base of support. It was the base of support for Hugo Chavez as well. I mean, is that significant or not so much considering